Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our candidate forum this evening, live from Stevens College in the Windsor Auditorium. Before we get started, I would like to thank the League of Women Voters and specifically introduce to you, to say a few words from the League of Women Voters here in Columbia, Elaine Blodgett. Please, a round of applause.
Good evening. On behalf of the League, I want to welcome you here. It's good to see all of you. And I'm also proud to say that the League of Women Voters has now been in existence for 90 years. And this is what we started doing in 1920, and we're still doing it today. We're interested in everyone being aware of what's on the ballot, who the candidates are, and what the issues are. So I'm glad you're here. I'm glad those of you who are listening will hear about the candidates. And at some other time, we have also done an issues program. And go out and vote on April 4th. Thank you. April 6th. I'm 2 days off.
April 6th is the election, that's right. Okay, so good evening from the Windsor Auditorium Stevens campus, together with the Columbia League of Women Voters and KSSZ, the Eagle. This is the 2010 Candidate Forum featuring candidates for City Council, for Mayor, and following that, an open discussion on Proposition 1, the downtown camera issue, all being decided on Tuesday, April the 6th. Good evening to our audience here with us in the auditorium, as well as those Missourians listening to Hot Talk 93.9 The Eagle. We're live on the air right now. And those we miss far away around the world that are listening on theeagle939.com. In 1932, Will Rogers wrote, "Politics is the best show in America." It may be true. Here tonight we have the makings of a great show, bringing together folks with different backgrounds and perspectives, different opinions, all eager to win your approval. Tonight's program is being recorded in its entirety for any and all purposes that we may have, including podcasts on our websites or rebroadcasts if we choose. And this morning, our Zimmer News Director, Shelley Tucker, said, "Good, glad we're recording it. If someone throws a shoe at a candidate tonight, we'll have it." And I hope we can keep our shoes on our feet and our wits about us. Let's begin with a panel of Columbia citizens running for City Council. In fact, before I ask any first questions, I would like, from the candidates and from the audience, a round of approval for all of us who are involved at this level in our own city. A little bit on the housekeeping as we ask questions, and by the way, we do have cards to be filled out if you would like to fill, and here's a card right now being brought up. If you'd like to ask a question this evening, look around, find one of the cards that are being handed out, and grab a pen, fill it out, and bring it on down to Mike Ferguson and or Shelley Tucker, or just pass them. We have a little basket it looks like we're passing. If you want to throw some checks in there as well, I'll be happy to just run a little bit of a basket around for that today. And put Carl Scala's name on there, and he'll be happy with that. A little bit on the housekeeping. I believe we're going to start with opening comments from each of our candidates, and they have 2 minutes. Is that they don't? They have 90 seconds. All right, I'm getting some direction from the League of Women Voters, and you do not want to cross them. Then we'll start off at this end of the table, the end next to me, and as we move through each question, we'll then start with the candidate to the left to begin the answering of each question. 90 seconds on the clock, ladies, and we begin now with an opening comment from Carl Scala.
I want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this candidate forum, and I want to thank all of my League friends in attendance here today. Allow me to invite all of you to visit my website at scalaforcouncil.com. I'd consider it a privilege to again serve as your voice on the City Council. I will continue to work as hard as I can to ensure that Columbia remains the wonderful place that we all love and see that it continues to prosper as our future unfolds. As a U.S. Marine Corps veteran, MU graduate, husband, father of 3, and as your neighbor, I have lived and raised my family in the 3rd Ward for 30 years. I love Columbia and want to continue to work to keep our city a great place to live. You deserve a representative with experience, dedication, and proven leadership skill. I am an elected Columbia City Councilman, past Vice Chair of the Columbia Planning and Zoning Commission, past Chair of the Environment and Energy Commission, and a current member of the Chamber of Commerce Government Affairs Committee I also currently serve on 3 National League of Cities panels. I look forward to visiting with all of you to hear about your concerns and hopes for Columbia. If reelected, I will continue to work hard on your behalf and on behalf of your families, your neighborhoods, and our entire community. Allow me to offer 6 key accomplishments in my first term as Columbia's 3rd Ward Councilman. I voted yes on public safety by voting for new police officers and equipment, for voting for cameras in downtown parking garages, voting for a new police training facility. I voted yes on jobs by voting for the Ewing Industrial Park power incentives, voted to construct a new railroad overpass on Highway 63, voted for 3rd Ward road, sewer, and water projects.
And Councilman Scala, that is time.
Thank you.
The cards that we have, you have a green and a red, ladies, that you're holding up. Green is 30 seconds, and red means stop. Should be easy enough. To our next candidate to the left, Gary Kespel. Opening comments, please.
Thank you, and I thank the League of Women Voters for providing the opportunity to discuss critical issues facing the city of Columbia. I have lived in Columbia for almost 60 years. My dad was a bus mechanic. He moved our family to Columbia so his kids could have an opportunity of growing up in America's best college town. I went to school here, I got married here, I raised my kids here, and now my grandchildren call Columbia home. I want to be sure Columbia stays prosperous and safe as a hometown for them and for your family. The record is clear in the 3rd Ward race. I support enabling job creation. Carl Scala, as councilman, has voted against key job creation projects. I want to provide safety cameras as a tool for police to help combat crime. Carl voted against the safety cameras, and he is against Proposition 1. Most important, I have common sense values. That is why I am shocked that Carl's lavish spending of taxpayer money on out-of-state junkets. I want a moratorium on council travel for the rest of the budget year, and Carl should apologize to the taxpayer for wasting their money. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, opening comments, Tracy Griever Rice.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting us this evening, and thank you all for coming out. I'm running because I have the right background, experience, knowledge, and skills to serve on the Columbia City Council and represent the 4th Ward. I can work with almost anybody, and I've spent many years working with a diverse group of folks on a wide range of issues. I earn my living doing research and analysis that helps local governments make public policy, and I've been doing so for 20 years. I have an established record of leadership and public service here in Columbia, as well as through working with dozens of communities throughout Missouri. In Columbia, I've worked on planning and land use issues, evaluated city and other social and human service programs, and have provided analysis of our demographic and socioeconomic trends. I have served as the Columbia Planning and Zoning Commissioner. I am currently the Vice Chair of the Columbia Vision Commission and an alternate on the Board of Adjustment. For many years, I've worked with neighborhoods and neighborhood associations, both as a volunteer and as a professional. I know how to find practical solutions to real problems. I know how to gather information, research, and public policy alternatives. I know how to evaluate the quality of that information and combine that with a working knowledge of our community to find practical, fair solutions to problems that we might face. I hold as a core value, it is my fundamental belief that citizens have the capacity to communicate with each other their concerns and needs in order to make public policy by and for themselves.
Next, with opening comments, Sarah Reed.
Thank you to all who are here and all who are listening. You, like me, might want to see a city government that's more efficient, more effective, and more focused. You might want to move beyond the usual arguments of who is right or wrong to finding ways we can work together as a community. You might want to have more input and influence on the decisions that affect your life, your neighborhood. And if you share those concerns, I believe I'm the right candidate for you, and I ask for your vote on April 6th. My experience, which is detailed on my website, read4thward.com, includes my work as a lawyer, small business owner, and community volunteer. It's deep, broad, and I submit unmatched by any other candidate in this race. I don't collect data, but I've worked with data all my life. I know what data to ask for, and I know how to question the data received. I know how to read and draft ordinances, and I know how to navigate the gap between an idea and the specific steps needed for implementation. I have managed others. I have managed large projects. I not only work well with others as a facilitator, mediator, and consultant, I know how to help others work well together. I don't drive a pickup, but I do know what it takes to maintain, fine-tune, and improve government systems. Throughout my career, I've worked on many large and complex matters that help me understand how issues connect with each other, and I've helped solve many difficult problems.
Time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Rick Buford, opening comments.
I echo my fellow candidates' appreciation to our hosts. I sit before you with a lot less grandiose resume than many of the other people up here. I'm running for city council largely because I believe that an honest, fair-minded citizen is every bit as useful a city council person as anybody else up here. I sit before you more as a dad, an employee of a local company that was born here and has grown magnificently in this environment. And I believe that common sense, no nonsense perspective is what the city council needs.
Thank you. And finally, on the city council candidates tonight in our open forum, opening comments from Darrell Dudley.
Hi, thank you for coming in tonight. Thank you for having us here. My name is Darrell Dudley. I work at the Hy-Vee gas station on West Broadway. I tell everybody that to make sure that everybody knows who I am on those signs. I work in a station and I talk to people all day, every day. I talk to over 300 people every day before 2 o'clock. I hear what you have to say. You're not happy with the way things are going in the community. You'd like to spend more time on bringing jobs in and taking care of crime. You don't think that you have a voice on the city council. Since I speak with you all day, every day, I want to be your voice on that city council. I want to bring new business to the city. I want to make sure that you are safe in your homes, in your shopping, and everywhere that you go. I will never cut the budget to the police or the fire or any necessary services in the community as long as I am on your city council. I will take care of your city as well as I can. I would appreciate your vote on 6 April.
Thank you, candidates. A little bit, I want to mention for those here in the audience who may not be aware and can't read the cards, or for those who are listening at home, that we do have 6 candidates on the stage this evening at this time, city council candidates, 2 different wards. So these are 2 different races going on, with 2 of the candidates for Ward 3 and 4 of them for Ward 4. A lot of numbers. Also, I need to, for those who aren't with us this evening in person, for the sound technicians who are doing an incredible job here at Stevens College, to help them, they gave us color-coordinated microphones. So while I have a stately black, you'll be happy to know that there's a full rainbow coalition of microphones in front of the candidates this evening. Carl got yellow, and Gary has red and purple and green and orange and blue, on down the line it goes. And I just wanted to call attention to how nice that is. They almost look like clown noses, and possibly at the end of the evening, we may ask them to put those on. We begin with our serious questions this evening, and we'll move to the left with each one of our questions and answers, and again, 90 seconds on the clock for each. We'll start with Gary Kespel. How do you propose to build strong neighborhoods, and particularly those that are on the brink of deterioration? And how can the city and the council help support and turn these neighborhoods around?
I think the key to strong neighborhoods is neighborhood policing. If neighborhood associations would get together and form groups and police themselves and know their neighbors, I think that would go a long way toward solving some problems in neighborhoods. There are construction ordinances in place for landlord rentals that will help the neighborhoods bring their code up to the standards. And I think they need to be enforced more heavily. I know there are 3-year inspection programs, and some of the neighborhoods are deteriorating pretty quickly. And I think those programs need to be enforced.
And of course, we'll move down the line with that question. How do you propose to build strong neighborhoods, and particularly those that are on the brink of deterioration? That question posed now to Tracy Griever-Rice.
I think that neighborhoods are built in 2 different ways. One, we need to take care of the physical of what makes a neighborhood. We need to ensure that infrastructure dollars in our community are used fairly and adequately to ensure that people's property values are protected and that they are safe in their neighborhoods. We also need to encourage and engage in fair and equitable code enforcement so that both renters and homeowners alike know that their investment is protected. But the other way to ensure that neighborhoods thrive is to encourage community development or neighborhood development and engagement between folks. I think that the creation of the Office of Neighborhood Services is a wonderful tool and a good policy decision that our community has made to support neighborhoods in taking care of themselves and being able to speak out for themselves.
Sarah Reed, how do you propose to build strong neighborhoods, particularly those that are on the brink of deterioration?
I think one of the key building blocks of government is neighborhood associations, and the city in the last year has formed an Office of Neighborhood Services that brings together under one roof neighborhood leadership training, strengthening neighborhood associations, and also giving a place to report and address nuisances and things like that. I've already heard from a lot of people walking around about crumbling curbs, sidewalks, roads, and I believe it's a key role of government to make sure neighborhoods have adequate infrastructure. I would hope to visit the neighborhoods and provide opportunities for people to get to know each other, which will make it easier for them to organize and connect to existing services as well. Thank you.
Rick Buford, same question.
Would make 2 points towards that. Number one, I would support Chief Burton's idea of geographic policing. I believe that safety is a concern in Columbia as it continues to grow. And I believe that his idea of geographic policing, putting officers on beats, letting them get familiar with the citizens of that area, especially the young children, so that the child's first experience meeting an officer isn't a troublesome one. It is that nice person that comes and talks to me. The other point that I would make is the only real way to encourage this type of neighborhood feeling is to have pride in that neighborhood. And when you've got crumbling sidewalks and crumbling streets and potholes and rundown houses, that you're never going to feel pride about that neighborhood. So we're going to have to look at the code enforcement. We're going to have to look at the occasional economic incentive.
Time. Thank you. To your left, Darrell Dudley. Darrell, how do you propose to build strong neighborhoods, particularly those on the brink of deterioration?
How many of you live in a neighborhood? Raise your hand. Everybody. How many of you are proud of your neighborhood? You're proud of your neighborhood because you know your neighbors, right? You have nice streets, you have nice sidewalks, you have nice looking homes. Everyone in your neighborhood is proud of your neighborhood and takes care of it. We need to develop, as Rick said, pride in your neighborhood. You need to get to know your neighbors. We need to have people doing things together. In my neighborhood in West Columbia, we have a garden in the median where everybody goes over and gets stuff in the middle of the summer when it all gets ripe. We have corn, we have beans, we have tomatoes, we have lots of things. Everybody is proud to come around to our area. We need to develop that more in our areas, in our communities, and in our neighborhoods. And precinct police. When I grew up in some other towns, or was living in some other towns and grew up in Iowa, I knew who all the officers were that came around. The officers were nice people. They knew when they came around if there was something wrong in the neighborhood. They checked it out right away. We need more of that here. We're not such a big place that we can't have friendly police who talk to the citizens, and the citizens enjoy having them come around.
And finally, same question to Carl Scala. How do you propose to build strong neighborhoods, particularly those on the brink of deterioration?
Well, I think it's pretty clear that there are two 900-pound gorillas on this panel, and that is economic development and policing. I think economic development in terms of neighborhoods is very important, both in terms of VOTEC and in terms of high-tech, and I submit that the Ewing Industrial Park is a good example of that. The City Council just recently provided an incentive for rate charges for high power users. That kind of thing will help our neighborhoods economically. Policing, for sure. Chief Burton has put in a geographic and neighborhood policing system and is doing very well at it. Tracy mentioned that the neighborhood empowerment with the Office of Neighborhood Services is an important component to this. And finally, this is one of those areas that I absolutely agree with Gary on. I agree that landlord-tenant relationships need some attention.
You're listening to our Candidate Forum 2010 on Hot Talk 93.9 The Eagle. I'm Tom Bradley, and by the way, let me know, would you please, Darryl, when the corn and beans and tomatoes are ready, because I'm coming by. I'd like some of those. The questions being submitted, by the way, raise your hand if you have written out a question or if you need a card, and we'll be happy to come. There we go, and bring it on up. Crime has already been mentioned here on the stage. I'll ask this now, and we'll begin with the answers with Tracy Griever Rice. Since the crime, and I'm reading from a card submitted this evening, since the crime statistics are up from the last year but down from 2 years ago, why do you consider crime to be an issue?
Well, crime is always an issue if you happen to be the victim of it, so we need to take a reasonable approach to this. One thing to understand is, though, there's been a lot of talk lately about crime numbers in terms of raw numbers. The way you really understand crime in a population is by looking at crime rates. So we need to take into account changes in growth in population when we think about the number and percent of crimes that are happening. I think that, well, I guess your question was, why do you think crime is a problem? I think the question is, why do we think crime is an issue in this campaign season? It garners attention. It is something that runs the possibility of changing the demographic of folks who get out and vote, and it keeps us talking about an issue that is very frightening, so we tend to pay attention to it, possibly at the expense of other things that are of greater risk to our community.
Sarah Reed, why do you consider crime to be an issue?
Total crime statistics can be misleading. If people don't feel safe in their neighborhood or they don't feel safe downtown, then we have a problem. Crime, you can have a total aggregate figure that you divide across a city and it looks small. But if you look at a neighborhood or an area, it can be large. If we're a great city, we need to feel safe to move around. And I think we can do more to help people feel safe. One of the things I would like to see happen is more restorative justice programs in our community. Community courts and victim offender mediation works in Clay County, works in other parts of the state. It makes young offenders actually feel more connected to the community, better understand the consequences of their crime, and it provides for reconciliation and reknitting into the community. So I think awareness, education, accountability, and new tools will help us address crime and be a better community.
Rick Buford, why do you consider crime to be an issue?
I believe crime's an issue all the time. Not so much anymore here recently than in prior years, but largely because of the comments that I've heard from individuals who perceive less safety in Columbia. An example would be one of the couples I work with is actually one of the first couples that suffered a home invasion. I talked my wife into moving to Columbia because the running joke in Kansas City was you could turn on the TV every morning and find out where the shooting and the fire was. Up until about November of last year, we had a run of those, and that's not acceptable. I believe we definitely need to, Ms. Nauser actually made an excellent initiative in getting more involved with the youth of our community. I definitely believe that's something that we should all support, and I certainly would.
And now to Darrell Dudley. Why do you consider crime to be an issue?
Crime is an issue, especially if it affects you. If it's across town, it's not that big of a problem. If it's next door, it's a problem. If it's in your house, it's a major problem. What we need to do is keep people who have idle hands and want to go out and do something that's not really friendly or nice to the neighbors. We need to get them a job. We need them to be doing something with their hands and earning money so that they do not have to commit crimes. Crimes are a problem if they escalate all the time, and as we have more and more people in the community losing their jobs, we need to get more of them back to work. That way nobody has time to sit around and think about how they can get an easy buck or an easy six-pack of beer or something such as that. I have a lot of things in my house that I paid for myself and I want to keep, and so do you. And we need those people to be getting a job and getting their own items. We need to make sure that they're very busy with entertainment or with work, and with the child programs and the youth programs that others have discussed. We need to keep that going.
And to my end of the table, Carl Scala. Why do you consider crime to be an issue?
Thank you. From the City Council's perspective, crime is an issue whether it's in your neighborhood or anybody else's. But importantly, accurate statistics are necessary to assess the extent and the focus of the application of what has now become somewhat limited resources, although we intend to continue to support these efforts. The answer here is enhanced police presence rather than general surveillance. But let me tell you what I've done about crime. Supported the addition of 2 police officers in the fiscal year 2009 budget. Supported adoption of Police Executive Research Forum standards and accreditation of Police Department by Commission on Accreditation. Encouraged increased attention to crime problems in Ward 3, including the Street Crimes Unit. Graduated from the Columbia Police Department Citizens Academy in May of 2009. Attended Police Department's 8-hour TASER certification program in 2008 and in 2009. And conducted 2 quarterly Ward 3 Neighborhood Safety Summit and Town Hall meetings on 9/3/09 and 1/11/10.
Time. And finally, question to Gary Kespel. Why do you consider crime to be an issue?
There were 501 violent crimes in 2009, up 30% from 2008. This rise in crime is shocking. In the Whitegate area alone, in the 3rd Ward, there have been some 3,000 calls for service of police since January 2009. That's too many. And many of us saw the savage beating of Adam Taylor in the parking garage thanks to the security cameras. And that video played a key role in the successful prosecution of the attackers. Carl is against allowing the police to deploy downtown safety cameras. And I am strong for giving the police that extra tool. And I am strong in support of Proposition 1 on the April 6th ballot.
It's interesting from my perspective as a moderator to move from one question to another and try to tie them in. It's almost like a game of spades and looking to see if anything's been trumped, and then if we can lay another. Tasers were mentioned. We'll go with this next question, and we'll start this with, I believe, Sarah? Is it your turn? What is your position on the use of tasers by Columbia Police? Sarah Reed.
My position on tasers, which is posted on my blog and has been for a couple of weeks, is that they can be a valuable tool. The police feel that they need them. The police also agreed to follow a set of professional standards in their use. I think those standards need to be carefully enforced, monitored, and we need to continue to evaluate the cost-benefit of tasers. But for now, we have them, and I'm in favor of keeping them.
Rick Buford, the question is tasers by Columbia Police. What is your feeling on that?
I hate to completely echo Mrs. Reed's statement. I believe them to be a valuable tool, and I'm not in the habit of removing valuable tools from our police force. However, there are the occasional troubling reports that because the taser is available, it is used more often than a gun would be. I believe we need to carefully monitor their use and establish metrics that the review board can use to identify if a taser has been abused and move on from there.
Darrell Dudley, what is your position on the use of tasers by Columbia Police?
Tasers are an excellent tool, and I believe every officer should have one. As Rick mentioned, they're better than guns. It's a lot easier to shoot somebody with a small piece of wire that emits a little bit of charge or emits a charge and brings down the criminal or the person with whom they are trying to subdue is much better than a gun, which can go through them and hurt someone else. It only injures one person, and they are subdued immediately. You can hit them with a baton, but you have to get up close and personal. If they are on drugs or violently drunk, you have a big problem. The tasers are much easier to use. We should always keep the tasers there for the officers.
Carl Scala, what is your position on the use of tasers by Columbia Police?
Yes, well, I'm not about to unilaterally disarm the police department when it comes to a useful tool. My daughter happens to be a police officer in Columbus, Ohio. She kind of taught me what I know about tasers, and I tried to give that information to the police department and the group that was actually opposing tasers in the form of those perf standards which have subsequently been adopted. I think what's really necessary is to optimize the policy and the training program for the certification of tasers. I've attended both of those training programs in 2008 and 2009, and in fact we are moving in the right direction. With the combination of the standards and the training and policy, I think we're on the right track.
Same question to Gary Kespel.
You know, I hope I'm never in a position with the police to be shot with a taser or a gun, but I would much rather be shot with a taser, so I am absolutely in favor of tasers. Did you folks know that the downtown police squad is wearing cameras on their person when they patrol at night? We are already videoing people downtown. So I think this issue of the cameras, the downtown cameras, is kind of a moot point because we're already doing it. But back to the tasers, I am absolutely in favor of giving the police every tool they need to be sure they can protect our citizens.
Tracy Griever Rice, position on tasers.
Well, I think that, and I've talked about this in the context of other things, a taser is a tool, just like many of the tools available to us as a community. And the issue is how we use tools. Do we use them effectively and fairly, or do we misuse them? I think it's a good thing that we've adopted the perf standards, as Carl mentioned, but mostly I think we need to understand that it isn't an either or. It's not tasers or guns. There's a number of different tools that police can use to encourage people to cooperate with them. And we also need to create a culture in our community where people are accepting of police officers when they're dealing with them, and police officers are respectful and aware of different cultural norms or understandings in the community and engage in kind.
Rick Buford, you lead off the answers with our next question. In talking about economic development in Columbia, what do you think needs to be done, and what are communities of our size doing to stimulate economic development?
That's an interesting question. There are communities our size that are outright bribing with cash businesses to bring jobs into their community. In our current economic state, we've reached that point where every job counts. I am a firm believer that step one is to retain the jobs that we've got wherever possible. A basic sales maxim is it is much easier to retain something than it is to get a new one. In that light, the same sort of incentives that I would offer to incoming businesses, I would probably be willing to discuss if a company is in dire straits and the city can do something, you know, along the lines of a TIF, TDD, tax abatement, some sort of incentive for them to stay in business.
And time. To Darrell Dudley, what is your position on economic development? What should we do? What are communities of our size doing to stimulate economic development?
Right now, our community is experiencing a budget crisis. We have businesses that are leaving. We have jobs that are leaving. We lost 4,800 jobs in Columbia last year. If you're not one of those 4,800, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal. But if you're one of those 4,800, it's a very large deal. Those people are now going to go to other communities and look for jobs. We need to have our tax base built here. We need to make it bigger. We do that by having people that are employed. We need to bring more companies in and employ more people. I see people every day that don't have jobs or that would like a better job. Whatever we have to do to entice them to come in, we need to give them TIFs, TDDs, tax breaks, whatever it takes. There's a lot of things that we can put on the table. We need to do whatever it takes to have us be just as good as someone else. When our name is put on a list of communities that a company is looking at and trying to decide between, we need to be at the top of the list when they make their decision, whatever it takes.
Carl Scala, your position on economic development, what should we do? What are other communities our size doing to stimulate economic development?
Thank you. On one of my recent so-called gourmet junkets to Charleston, South Carolina, I attended a National League of Cities Economic Development Conference and brought back enough information for the city manager, Bill Watkins, to use it in a presentation that was used to inform the city council at last year's retreat. But in terms of economic development specifically, what we are doing and what we have done on the council in terms of the Ewing Industrial Park is the right thing. We provided the incentives at Ewing Industrial Park for power incentives. The county provided the Chapter 100 bonds, and the state provided the certification as a shovel-ready site. There is a huge difference between economic development and real estate development. That's not to belittle real estate development, but it is driven by economic development. We are doing the right thing, and we need to continue working in that direction.
Gary Kespel, your position on economic development, what are we doing? What should we be doing? What are communities of our size doing to stimulate?
I think the council should send a clear message that Columbia is open for business. And quite the opposite message has been sent. With Carl's votes against job creation projects, including Landmark Hospital, McGuire Boulevard Extension, and Cross Creek, those messages have been sent. We need to encourage use of shovel-ready sites such as those along McGuire and at Ewing Industrial Park. Because of Carl's vote against McGuire improvements, that prime area for job creation could have been a disaster. I applaud the council for coming up with the electrical plan for a data center. I think that's one of the best things they've done in the last 3 years. I think we have a really good chance to get a business like that now, and it's just a great plan for the council to have come up with.
Tracy Griever Rice, your position on economic development, what should we do? What are other communities our size doing?
We need to be clear as a community about what economic development is to begin with. Economic development is growing your economic base. It's bringing in dollars and resources from outside the community and encouraging them to turn over as many times as possible. When we think about it as a public policy decision, we need to be sure that when we spend public dollars, we're using them to encourage true economic-based development. We know from 40 years of research on what works and what doesn't work to grow an economic base that retention and expansion programs and startups, the encouragement of entrepreneurship for basic businesses, are what's most likely to result in a long-term gain for the community. Long-term committed companies, high-wage, high-skill, high-benefit jobs. So when we think about using our public dollars to encourage economic development and economic growth, we need to make sure that we're doing it in a way that encourages natural partnerships between the university, between the community, and between the regional economy, regional economic players.
And final answer on that question, we go to Sarah Reed. What is your position on economic development? Are we doing what we should be doing? What are communities our size doing to stimulate economic development?
I do support what Ready is doing and the kind of regional partnerships that Carl Scala mentioned. I think we are a unique community with great value to offer, and we shouldn't just look at what other communities who don't have our assets do. That will cause us to undervalue ourselves. I have posted on my blog 10 ideas that we can do in the short term with economic development, and one thing everybody can do is vote yes for the school bond issue on April 6th. Ready has said that would create 1,600 new jobs, 894 in construction, over 150 in retail. Every dollar invested would be turned over 2.51 times. That's something we should be doing. We've developed a kind of anorexic model and asymmetric model of funding where when times are good, businesses often ask government to keep out of business, and they complain about paying into the public funds. When times are hard, they ask for money from government. We provide public services. If we value our police, if we value our fire, if we value our infrastructure, we should not be afraid to ask people to pay for them.
And time. We'll wrap up our first portion this evening. You're listening to Hot Talk 93.9, The Eagle, live from Stephens College. We'll wrap up this first portion with our city council candidates with a closing comment from each, and that brings us to the last on the table. Will be first now, and there'll be Darrell Dudley.
I'd like to thank you all again for coming tonight. I am running for city council so that I can be your voice on the city council. I believe that many of us feel that we haven't had a good voice on the city council for a number of years. And I want to listen to everybody, hear what you have to say, and take that to the city council and do as you, the people, want us to do on the city council. I have a pickup. It's got 327,000 miles on it. It still gets 20 miles to gallon. It's in great shape, and I'll take as good a care of your city as I do of my truck.
Closing comments from Carl Scala.
I again want to thank the League for hosting this candidate forum, and if questions remain, please just ask me or visit my website at scholaforcouncil.com. As a Columbia City Councilman, I can offer Columbians the following: a principled voice on the City Council with an open ear to all citizens, a dedicated public service record, proudly setting the bar high in terms of hard work and results, an open, accessible, and responsive city government. That means doing something beyond just talking about it, and that's supported by a proven record of accomplishments. My record demonstrates proof of my commitment. It is a record I'm very proud of, one that I can continue to build upon, but only with your help. I would appreciate your support in this very important campaign. Here is my pledge. I will stand up for our entire community and support public safety, especially safer neighborhoods, prosperity, that means good jobs, better roads, and improved city services, and responsive city government, and that means more than just talking about it. Finally, I've added one just for this special occasion: comedy in governance. By that, I mean mutual civility and respect. Thank you for this opportunity to answer your questions, and please cast your vote for experienced and proven leadership on April 6th. Vote to re-elect Carl Scala for the Columbia City Council.
Closing comments this evening from Gary Kespel.
It's shocking that Carl Scala feels he owes no apology to the Columbia taxpayers for wasting their money on gourmet meals and out-of-state junkets. Carl is the height of insensitivity and the worst economy since the Great Depression. Public documents show that Carl spent more than $16,000 on taxpayer-funded junkets since taking office 3 years ago, far more than any other council member. If you would like to see proof about Carl's gourmet junkets, including the actual receipts of his fine meals, visit garyforcouncil.com. I think Carl should apologize to the taxpayer for wasting their money on extravagant meals and travel, and I am calling for a moratorium on council travels for the rest of the budget year. Clearly, Columbia taxpayers cannot afford 3 more years of Carl's wasteful spending of public money. We cannot afford 3 more years of Carl's no votes on vital job creation. We cannot afford 3 more years of Carl's opposition to giving our police common sense tools to keep us safe, like safety cameras. As Third Ward Councilman, I stand for enabling job creation, fighting crime, and common sense values, including my pledge not to take taxpayer-funded trips. I would appreciate your vote on April 6th.
Final comments this evening. Folks, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and keep your thoughts inside your head. Okay? It's polite, because what we've asked from these candidates is to be here in an open forum for us. We have cards we can fill out with your questions. You can always contact them through their websites they're giving you, or stop them on the street on the way to a coffee shop and have a little chat with them. But in the meantime, let's keep that to ourselves tonight. Closing comments this evening by Tracy Griever-Rice.
Thanks again to the League, and thanks to all of you for coming out and for your attention tonight and your interest in our community. I should mention that I do have a website. I encourage you to take a look at it, tracyforcouncil.com. We have much work to do over the next several years, both the practical work of stabilizing our economy and planning for growth, as well as to ensure that we have a culture of decency and fairness to and with each other. I have the tools to do this job. I come to you tonight with an open heart and an open mind. And I thank you for your interest in our community and this election. I encourage you to come out on April 6th, and I respectfully ask for your vote and support. Thank you.
Closing comments this evening from Sarah Reed.
Thank you all. Columbia has the people and the resources to be a great city, although we won't solve our current problems unless we learn to work better together. We need to stop being diverted by issues and arguments that don't really move us forward. I have the skills and the experience to help us move forward together. I care about you, I care about your neighborhoods, and I value your opinion. If you elect me, you will have a partner in government, one who works to inform, equip, engage you, and work together with you. My website is readfourthward.com. That's R-E-A-D, 4-T-H, ward.com. And I would like to be your partner in government. I ask for your vote on April 6th. Thank you.
And closing comments, finally, Rick Buford.
Again, thank you for our hosts and everybody listening and watching. I've had a lot of questions as to, why I think I should be even up here. And to which my normal first response is, well, I am breathing, so that makes me qualified. I strongly urge everybody to question everything. What I've done for the last 10 years has taught me a lot regarding how to maximize an investment in your future. And that's what I think that I bring to the council. There's going to be a lot of hard decisions over the next 3 years, and I believe that I can answer those questions and help us achieve a better position so that when the general economy gets better, we will be in a better spot. I've tried to be as absolutely open as possible regarding how I feel on certain topics. I urge you to go to BufordForColumbia, all one word.com, where I have actually gone through the agenda for the last several months, putting in important items and where I would stand on them, just to make sure that there is no question when I'm asked, this is where I would have stood on that issue. Again, asking for your vote on April 6th. Hope to see you there.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to Hot Talk 93.9 The Eagle. I'm Tom Bradley, along with the League of Women Voters, Mike Ferguson, Shelley Tucker. We are live from Stephens College, and we've just finished up the first of 3 portions of our candidate forum this evening. Our city council candidates. Coming up next is the mayoral forum. But for these city council candidates, ladies and gentlemen, here in our audience, please a round of applause. Thank you all very much, and you are excused. We're going to shuffle these guys off the stage at this time and ask our mayoral candidates to come forward and grab your seat. I believe we'll have some name places put out for you. While you are doing that, I'm going to pitch it down in front of the stage over here to Mike Ferguson.